Tim, the size and scale of this is absolutely amazing. But how do you decide what to grow and how to figure out how much of everything to grow?
So with all of our retailers, we have full visibility into what sells every day at those garden centers. Our garden centers generally close around the 4th of July. So starting then, after the 4th of July holiday, we'll start planning for next year. We'll look at what's sold at each retailer and decide how many hanging baskets, how many 1204s to plant, and how many 4.5 inch. Then for the next 3 months, it takes us to plan and secure all of those inputs. And by December, we start seeding.
So when you're talking about inputs, what do you mean by that?
So all of the seeds, all of the tags, all of the plastic pots, we purchase all of that out of this facility for all of our growing locations.
Do you start the crop by seeds or cuttings?
So a lot of our stuff is from seeds, but we also do have cuttings that we stick in these Ellie pots, a little paper sock and the soil. But a lot of the stuff is from seed production, like these peppers here in these 162 cells.
When you do seeding, like into that, do you hand seed that?
All of our seeding is done automatically with a drum seeder. So the plug tray will go through the flat filler and get filled up with soil, makes little indentation. Then a stainless steel cylinder will actually vacuum up each seed and drop it in each row.
Wow. Then I've heard the term primed seed. And what does that mean? And do you use some of that?
So we do use some primed seed. Mainly what it's used for is to even out germination. So they actually almost force that seed to germinate prior to us seeding it. A lot of crops, some crops are uneven to germinate, so that just helps us. And then pelleted seed is used quite a bit. That's for really small seed, like a snapdragon and begonia are just tiny, tiny seeds. So they pelletize it to make it bigger and actually help with that drum seeder. And tomatoes have actually a little cup to them, so that pelletizing fills in that cup and makes it easier to be vacuumed up.
Do you do one crop of seeding, or do you seed like the same crop numerous times, depending on where it's going to get shipped to?
So we definitely stage out our sowing into multiple crops. A lot of the things we do will be weekly, but most of the things are bi-weekly. They can only hold for so long in this environment before they go out to the retail market.
Then do you have like a germination chamber at all?
We don't use a germination chamber here. We have, where we're standing now, this acre bay that we're in actually has in-floor heat that we can regulate the temperature in each one of these zones to wherever we need it.
And then how do you water in this area with all of these babies?
So all of these benches that we're looking at, we call them a zone. So the boom irrigators will come down and we can program them to water each table as needed for all the different crops that are in. And only when it gets closer to a finished size will we then water by hand and spot water, as we call it.
And then when do you start fertilizing?
Generally, we do a small fertilizer application right as that plant emerges and gets past the cotyledon stage, which is that first leaf. Once it gets its first true leaf, that's when we'll start the fertilization process. And not a lot in the plugs. That's more for the finished side.
How long do you leave them here, and how do you know when it's time to move them?
So everything's a little bit different. Most of our seeded crops and our vegetative crops will be in their smaller cell for only about 6 weeks before they make it to production. And we'll put them in this warm area where we're at now for only about half of that, maybe 3 to 4 weeks. Then they transition to a cooler area where they strengthen up.
You mentioned vegetative. What is the difference between a vegetative and a seed-grown plant, and why two different things?
So seeded items are generally a little bit less expensive, except some of the vegetables can be very expensive. Cuttings are more of a patented item. So we're required to use a vegetative cutting, and most of them don't produce seed. So we'll receive the cutting just like this and stick it into its tray here.
You mentioned patented. What does that mean, or what is the limitation on that?
So a lot of the plant breeders, they own the rights to that plant. They don't allow us to take that cutting. We have to purchase that cutting and a license to use it. We have to buy their tag. We actually meet with a lot of the plant breeders and see what's new and exciting for the next season.
How do you decide what new things to add and what old things to drop off?
That's the fun part. You can see something in a catalog that may be the latest and greatest, but to do it on a massive scale, we might not be able to get our hands on enough of it, or they'll limit it to a smaller grower. So we meet with them in maybe 2 years in advance, and we have the luxury here of trialing some of the new products for the upcoming season to see how they do in our gardens prior to getting them out to the public's eye.
So when the plants get big enough here, then where do they go from here?
Then they transition to our transplanting area, our production room.
And is that transplanting done by hand or a machine again?
Depending on the size, a lot of the familiar 1204 packs, the little cell packs that you buy, those are generally all done by machine. A lot of the baskets and larger containers are done by hand still.
Tim, what do you use to seed all of these plants into?
So our mix is just a basic peat moss and perlite blend. You can see some of the little flecks of white and gold in here. It's just a more fine grind of peat moss and perlite. It's the same mix we use in our finished side, which is just more coarse. We'll use a coarser peat and a coarser perlite to add more aeration. And at that point, we'll add more micronutrients to it, a slow release fertilizer, some different limes. And each crop is slightly different, but generally it's the same mix in both.
How do you know what to add for each crop?
So that's a little bit of experience with our top-notch growers here. Each plant is a little bit different, but for the most part, a plant's a plant.
When you fertilize, do you fertilize through the water system?
Yes, a lot of what we do in the plug side is liquid feed, as well as the finished side. We do at the production line add a slow release granular fertilizer, which is generally just for the consumer side of it. It's not here long enough to activate. So that's for when you take it home and put it in the ground or in your planter. That's when it will activate. So hopefully you have to feed it less.